The rain poured that night as if the sky itself wanted to wash away the memories of the world. In the heart of New York City, under the faint golden glow of the streetlights, stood a man who had everything, except peace. Ethan Kross, billionaire, CEO, and the kind of man people whispered about in awe and envy, was standing alone under an umbrella, staring at the old brick cafe across the street. He wasn't there for the coffee. He was there because that was where it happened. One night, one kiss, and he couldn't forget her. It wasn't supposed to mean anything. That was the rule. He didn't believe in love, he didn't have time for it. To Ethan, emotions were liabilities, weaknesses that cost you millions and left scars deeper than any deal gone wrong. But that night, 6 months ago, changed everything. Her name was Ava Monroe. She was a struggling artist who worked part-time at that cafe, always smelling faintly of vanilla and paint. Ethan first saw her when his car broke down nearby, a rare event for a man whose life was otherwise meticulously controlled. He'd stepped out, irritated and impatient, barking into his phone at his assistant about meetings and markets, until her voice cut through the noise. "Sir, you're blocking the sidewalk," she'd said, her tone polite but firm. Ethan turned, ready to bite back, but the sight of her stopped him. Wet hair stuck to her face, eyes bright even in the rain, holding a steaming cup of coffee in one hand and a sketchpad in the other. She didn't look at him like the others did, with awe, fear, or calculation. She just looked, unimpressed that he found that strangely refreshing. She offered him shelter in the cafe until his driver arrived. It wasn't much, just a small corner booth, the hum of jazz music, and the smell of roasted beans, but for some reason, Ethan found it impossible to leave. She didn't ask who he was or what he did. She talked about art, people, and how beauty often hides in broken things. He didn't realize it at first, but she was the first person in years who made him feel human. Then the power went out, the city fell into darkness, and the cafe became a world of flickering candles and whispered laughter. It was strange, intimate, like time had stopped. They shared stories, his about numbers and negotiations, hers about dreams and disappointments. When the rain slowed to a drizzle, she smiled softly and said, "Maybe the universe wanted you to slow down tonight." And then, in that silence thick with unspoken feelings, she kissed him. It wasn't passionate or planned. It was gentle, fleeting, yet it hit him harder than any business triumph ever had. A kiss that felt like a question he didn't have the answer to. When the lights came back, she smiled, said, "Good night, stranger," and left. The next morning, she was gone. No trace, no number, not even a last name. Ethan tried to go back to work, back to being the man who controlled empires, but something in him had changed. The world suddenly felt colder, the victories emptier. He didn't even understand why he cared so much. It had been one kiss, one night, but he couldn't stop thinking about her. Weeks turned into months, and Ethan's obsession grew. He had people search, of course, quietly, discreetly, but New York was big, and Ava was a name too common to chase without more. He began visiting the cafe more often, sometimes just sitting in her old corner, as if the memory of her could materialize there again. One evening, he found a sketch on the wall, something she'd drawn before she disappeared. It was a charcoal portrait of the city skyline, but in the corner, faint and almost hidden, was a small figure of a man under an umbrella, staring into the rain. It was him. That discovery hit him like a storm. She'd drawn him. She'd remembered him. Maybe she'd felt the same. Ethan didn't believe in fate, but for the first time, he wanted to. Months later, a charity art auction came across his radar, a small event downtown to raise money for underprivileged children. Normally, he wouldn't have cared, but the curator's name caught his eye, Ava Monroe. His heart nearly stopped. That night, Ethan didn't send a representative. He went himself. The gallery was small, filled with color and warmth. Every painting on the walls carried emotion, joy, pain, hope. He found her near the back, talking softly to a couple. She looked different, stronger, calmer, but her smile was exactly as he remembered. When their eyes met, time folded again. She froze, recognition dawning in her gaze, followed by a flicker of surprise. then restraint. "Mr. Cross," she said, voice steady. "I didn't expect to see you here." He smiled faintly. "I didn't expect to find you here either." They talked quietly, cautiously. He wanted to ask 1,000 things, why she'd left, why she hadn't reached out, but he didn't. Instead, he listened as she explained her work, her art, her foundation for children who couldn't afford to study. She'd built something meaningful out of nothing. He admired that, when the auction began, Ethan did something reckless. One of her paintings, a depiction of two silhouettes under an umbrella, was up for bid. Without hesitation, he offered a number that silenced the room. $1 million, gasps followed. Ava stared at him, wide-eyed. "It's for a good cause," he said softly. "And a beautiful painting." Afterward, she found him outside, anger and confusion mixed in her expression. "Why would you do that?" she demanded. "You don't need to, because I wanted to," he interrupted gently. "Because I haven't stopped thinking about you since that night." Her expression faltered. "Ethan, it was just one night." "Maybe for you," he said, voice trembling slightly, "but for me, it was the first time I felt something real. You made me realize that all my success, all my power, it means nothing if I can't feel alive." She looked away, struggling. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," he whispered. "You see the world differently. You make broken things beautiful. And I've been broken for a long time." Tears welled in her eyes, but she shook her head. "I'm not what you think. I left because I didn't want to be someone's fantasy. I've been invisible my whole life, and that night was the first time I felt seen, for me. I didn't want that to be ruined by who you are." Ethan stepped closer. "Then see me now. Not the billionaire. Just the man standing in the rain, hoping you'll give him another chance." A long silence passed. The rain began again, light and rhythmic, as if echoing their memories. Finally, she sighed. "You're impossible." He smiled faintly. "So I've been told." She laughed through her tears. And in that laughter, something healed. Months later, Ava's foundation flourished, with Ethan's help, though quietly, without recognition. He visited often, helping where he could, learning, changing. Their connection grew, not built on money or need, but mutual respect and understanding. She taught him how to slow down, how to see beauty in imperfection. He taught her that vulnerability didn't mean weakness. Together, they built something neither had planned for, but both needed deeply, and yet, Ethan never forgot that it all began with one kiss, one night. Years later, when their story became the kind of quiet legend people whispered about, the billionaire who fell for the artist who didn't care who he was, he often said something that Ava would tease him for repeating: "Sometimes, the smallest moments change everything. Sometimes, one night is all it takes to find what you've been missing your whole life." Because in the end, it wasn't about wealth, power, or fame. It was about one fleeting, unexpected moment that turned a hardened man into someone capable of feeling again, and that, perhaps, was the most priceless thing of all.